Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Power of Reinvention. I have two guests on my show today that I am super excited to be talking to, not only because I am in the middle of reading this incredible book, Happy Wife, which I cannot recommend enough, and we'll get into that in this conversation. But I love when I see people pivot in their lives, when there is that reinvention and aha moment, and the day job takes them into a night job, which becomes the day job, or the part day job, which becomes the night job. And I feel like Meredith and Kendall, you two have done that. So, hi, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for
Hi.
having us.
I love
Thank
this. I
you.
love being able to. I'm going to share a little background for our audience on both of you, and we are going to then delve into a really fun conversation. So, Meredith Lavender has spent more than 2 decades working as a television writer and an executive producer. Most recently, she served as a showrunner and exec producer on Max's The Flight Attendant, and she's currently in development on multiple projects with A&E, Paramount Plus, and a whole bunch more. And Kendall Shores is been working around 17 years running the gamut from grant writing for a not-for-profit museum in Orlando to communications consulting and strategy for large organizations. How you two met, how you collaborated on this book are just the tip of the iceberg of where I want to start this conversation. So why don't you tell us what brought the two of you together to collaborate on writing Happy Wife? And is this the first thing you've ever done together? What is the story?
Sure, it's a great question. We met where I feel like a lot of women who are working moms meet their friends, which is at an event for our children. So it was back to school night at our kids' school. And Atlanta is complicated when it comes to traffic and parking. So I was enjoying some of the traditional fare of such things. And I blow into the classroom a little bit late, as I am wont to do. And my daughter sits down and I'm sweating because it's, the middle of September in Atlanta. And I'm just, not wanting the teachers to look at me sideways, wanting to make sure that I get her delivered to her seat safely. And I look down and the piece of paper in front of her says, "This is a scavenger hunt. Please tell us how many light switches there are in the classroom and how many plants there are by the window and how many, pencil cups there are over on your teacher's desk." And I think that would be a really fun activity. And it probably was about 10 minutes before we arrived, but everyone's seated now. And so to have the answers, I'm going to have to start like slinking around the classroom or some kind of miracle is going to
Right.
have to occur. And so my daughter looks to the boy next to her, and it's Meredith's son, and he says, I can help you with these because he's already done the work, of course. So we joke we normally don't condone cheating, but in this case it was sanctioned
It's called
sharing of information.
collaboration,
That's right. That's
right?
exactly right. Yes. Yes. So we became fast friends after that. So we were friends in the way that you are friends with all of the moms that you bump into at
Of
school and
course.
see at parties and bounce houses and all of the places moms find themselves in a given week. And I had always been someone who wrote, but I didn't imagine myself being able to write a book. So I chose careers that felt like they were in proximity to writing. So I did grant writing, as you mentioned, for a museum called the Orlando Science Center, and then worked in marketing and communications for several companies here in Atlanta, including Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and Mailchimp. And so I always kept
Mhm.
choosing roles that felt a little bit like they were creative, but they were at the end of the day 9 to 5. More traditional corporate opportunities. And I would write on the nights and the weekends, kind of hoping to have this lightning strike of inspiration and finally be able to finish a book. And as luck would have it, I was kind of winding down my time at the role that I was in at Mailchimp and had an idea about my hometown, which is called Winter Park, Florida. And I was worried again that I had this great idea and I wouldn't be able to finish it. And knowing Meredith as a friend who had finished many great stories, I thought, well, maybe she'll be able to help me out. And so we were out for a walk
Oh,
one day, and I said, I know everyone thinks their hometown is interesting, but hear me out. I have this idea, and it happens in my hometown. And thankfully, she said yes. She offered to take a look at the pages and the outline and help me.
that's incredible. And it's so rare that you find someone in the collaborative process like this, especially in writing. I had that experience with my editor who got my voice, finished my sentences. We spoke the same language. And it's so precious when you do find someone that you can get into that kind of groove with. So it sounds like that was kind of an automatic for you, right?
Yeah.
So Meredith, what's your sort of backstory in terms of, when she came whisking into the room, did you go, oh my God, who is this crazy lady? And are we going to be
No.
friends? It's kind of fun to look at
Mm,
your origin story sometimes.
yeah, no, I think I felt immediate sympathy to the plight that is Atlanta parking, and the school is in the middle of a city park, and
Right.
so yeah, it's tricky, even trickier in some ways. No, it's great when you just meet somebody and what was on the horizon was friendship, and then I had been writing TV for 20 years, and she approached me in May of 2023, and the Writers Guild had just put us out on the strike line for the second time in my career, and which was tough. And I think this time around, I knew it was going to be long and kind of protracted, and it was. So when she approached me with the idea, it was a real lifeline in terms of where I was going to put any of my creative energy, because I couldn't do any of the television things that I normally did and do. And so it was kind of delightful to have somebody pitch an idea that caught my attention, both in the fact that it has kind of a genre mashup like the Flight Attendant did, where you're kind of two things at once, in that you're kind of mystery thriller lane, and then kind of the romantic comedy romance side of the book.
Right.
Um, and I love the idea of being able to explore both of those things and not just being kind of in one lane. Yeah. So then she said, she sent over, she'd written some of the early chapters, and there was a strong voice there. And I've read a lot of material in my career, and voice, when you have great voice put in front of you, you're like, okay, this is really fun. There's something here. So yeah, so it ended up being a wonderful, crazy fast summer of diving in and writing the book.
Amazing. I love that. So I want to take you both back a little bit, much like the cadence of your book, which is the before and then the current day. Let's talk a little bit about who both of you were when you were little. Like, did you envision where your careers would take you? And I think that, we all grow up with some sense of, I want to be a ballerina. I wanted to be an elevator driver. I mean, we traveled a lot as a family, and those guys that controlled the
Yeah,
wheel and the door,
yeah.
and they had the little cat. I don't know. It was something about that. I was like, that's so cool. I also wanted to be a ballerina, and my mom let me know that that probably wasn't going to happen anytime soon at some point. But, when you look at your life and, what we envision for ourselves, and even later, whether we're 5 years old, 12 years old, 20 years old, Meredith, do you find that you set out on a path to be where you are today? Were you enamored by television and films and knew that there was kind of a passion for what you wanted to do there? And how you sort of saw where you were then and how you got to where you are now?
Uh, no is the short answer, but yes is the longer one. My mom and dad took me to see the musical Cats when I was 5 years old,
Okay.
and I'd never seen a musical before. And I just remember sitting. We were at the Schubert in Chicago, and I remember just sitting, leaning. We were on the mezzanine and just watching it. And I walked out of the theater, and I said, "I'm going to do that." And
Wow.
so I pursued it all the way through. I pursued music and theater, all the way through college. I was actually an opera performance major in college,
Wow.
and really kind of was on the other side of things. I did some TV and film in college and after. And so kind of was on the other side of the camera. And I think at a certain point, you walk into an audition room and there's a whole lot of you sitting around. And it wasn't that I didn't think I could, it was just that, like, would anyone let me?
Mm.
And so I took a turn and went to work for the president of MGM Studios for a year, and then I worked for a celebrity for a little while, and then my older brother's a screenwriter as well, and he had a movie going, and so then I went and worked for him on that movie, and kind of all the way along the way was
trying to figure out where my place was because I knew I loved the business. I loved the entertainment industry. I loved entertaining. And I just couldn't figure out what seat I wanted. And I was on set in Chicago filming this movie. And I looked around Video Village because I was like, well, this is kind of cool place to be. And I was like, who's in the village? And I was like, all right, directors, script supervisor, producers, writers. And I was like, okay, I'm like, I could probably do one of those. I don't think script super, but I could do any of the other ones. And long story short, that summer, I was passing an idea back and forth with my writing partner in Hollywood, who I've been with for 20 years. And um, we decided at the end of the summer to write the idea ourselves. And so kind of really fell into it, not by mistake, but it was not the chosen path. It's not where I thought I was going to end up.
Yeah.
And we got very lucky. That script got us representation. And then we sold the first pilot we ever pitched, we sold, and it got picked up to series. And then we went on strike for the first time. And then
Oh
they
my God.
force majeured everything on the other side of the
So
strike.
that
So
wasn't Flight Attendant. That was something else.
that was something else. That was in, yeah, that
Okay.
was a lot. That was in 06, 07, 07, 08, excuse me. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I think little Meredith wanted to be in and around entertainment. I loved, and
Yeah.
I
The
loved
magic
TV and
of it.
film too. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know, if you give people a couple hours of their day that they're not thinking about any of the icky stuff and they
Oh
just get to
yeah.
enjoy a thing, you
I'll
know?
take a few of those any
Right?
day.
I think that was the thing that I was drawn to. So didn't think I'd be doing what I'm doing now, but I'm really, really grateful that I am.
Amazing. And how about you, Kendall? Who is little Kendall?
I think we are opposite sides of the same coin. I always wanted to be a writer. I
Wow.
would handwrite novels when I was I remember in the 8th grade, like, keeping a little binder with, ruler paper and a pencil, and I would handwrite stories. And so I have always wanted to be a writer of books, and always thought, as soon as I can get the savings to do it, then I can, stand myself up and be
So
able to.
you were led to believe that you couldn't make
Yes.
a living doing
Well,
that,
there's
or
certainly an amount of writing on spec that you're doing even as
sure.
you're writing your first
Yeah.
novel, and so I
Yeah.
understood that I would have to be able to either find the time in the margins or, make the time with some level of savings, and so
You
I
know,
was.
that's sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say it's just such an interesting point because I
Yeah.
think so many people who are seeking some reinvention in their life often feel like they've got a passion for something, but
Mhm.
they can't finance their lives pursuing their passion, right? It's a constant push pull. It's a conversation we have every day around reinvention conversations. And there is nothing greater than being able to figure out the strategy to find a way to do what you love and make money doing it if that's what you need to do in life, right? So I love that you bring that up because I think it is something that so many people struggle with and don't believe that, you know, every passion and every interest can necessarily lead to that, nor does it have to, right? Like the two can
Right.
live side by side. And that's a beautiful and wonderful thing if you can find ways to do it all. But I love that you bring that up. So for you, that journey, how did that grow for you?
Sure, I'm here to give hope to those that are still looking for those
Thank
windows
you.
of
We
opportunity.
love that.
I turned 40, and I remember kind of looking around, and I think every birthday, every milestone in life is an opportunity to look at the landscape. What do I have that I like? What do I want to bring with me? And where can I continue to grow? And what am I missing? And I think turning 40 for me made me look at all of the things in my life that I had kind of accepted as being status quo and start to challenge, um, where am I accepting less than what is acceptable? And in the case of writing specifically, I was not willing to accept anymore that I would never write a book. And so I started for the first time in my life telling people, I think I'm going to, before my next job switch, I think I'm going to write a book. I think that's how I'm going to spend my next job switch. And so it just became something really subtle. But even talking about it, I believe in energy. I believe in speaking things into
Giving
existence.
it
I
a
believe in
voice, right?
sending
Yep.
signals to the universe that you're ready. And so I had the opportunity to just voice it, and that became maybe a year later. Starting the process of working with Meredith, and so it was truly a process. And honestly, the biggest barrier was not ultimately the finances, but finding the confidence to say I'm capable of doing this, and it's time.
You know what I love about that? I speak about it a lot in my book, which is called Reinvent Your Life. What are you waiting for? And in all these conversations we have on the podcast, is this notion of giving power to that voice and a dream and a vision and a passion. And I come from a very spiritual and entrepreneurial family. So, what you're saying resonates incredibly. And I think is truly something that I'd love to see more people put faith in and recognizing when you do say, and I did the same thing, I had an idea for a book and I'd never thought about writing a book. I'd been writing my whole life. I write for business, I write for communication. It wasn't until years later that I realized I kept journals as a kid, like when I was a little girl and we moved around a lot and we traveled a lot. And I kept diaries. I have them sitting on a shelf by my bed still. And I guess I had an early passion for writing, but never thought, oh, okay, therefore, one day I want to write a book. And when I had this idea about this conversation around reinvention and the way I live my life, I started saying to people, I'm going to write a book. And I was almost like amused with myself that I kept saying it. Like it was almost like a
Sure.
joke to me.
Uh-huh.
But what happened was everybody kept kind of checking in with me, saying, how's the book going? Are you interviewing? Like, what's going on with the book? And all of a sudden I realized like they were taking it a little more seriously than I
Yeah.
was. And maybe it was time for me to like really just do the work that needed to happen to actually do it because people were ready to hear it from me. And I think we kind of grapple with what are people going to think? And am I
Yes.
crazy? And where's it going to fit in my life? And am I going to derail something over here? Like all the negative stuff that comes up, all the questionable stuff that maybe sidetracks us from pursuing it, right?
Yes.
So there is
It's
great
so
power.
relatable, yeah. And the great news, and maybe if this is a test for others, like I said it out loud and no one laughed. No one was like, you can't do that. You're not allowed. And but that was the story I
That
had
was
told myself.
that was the
So I
validation
started to
you
rewrite the
needed.
story. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So you meet, you start to collaborate. Tell a little bit about that process of collaborating on the book. You live in the same city. Did you have to get together? Who wrote what? How did you edit? Like, what was that experience in that process for the two of you?
I think
Meredith,
it
you want to? Oh,
started.
sorry.
Oh,
Go
yeah.
ahead,
No, Meredith,
Kendall.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Please. No, go on.
It,
Uh,
it
yeah, go ahead, Kendall. Say what you're going to say because I know what you're going to say. So you say what you're going to say, and then I'll say something.
It started with me kind of handing over like what had been downloaded to me on the idea. So what I had drafted as far as outlines and chapters, and I just kind of was like, I don't know. This is what I have. What do I do with this? And so there's a very early document. I pulled it out a couple of weeks ago um, to revisit like the aspiration of that and kind of recapture that feeling. And we started there and looking at the outline and revisiting um, what I thought would happen and kind of getting to the place where we both agreed on what would happen and fine tuning it and then using collaborative documents. We actually didn't spend any time in person working on this. All of the work that we did together was either over Zoom or via collaborative documents or over the phone. So
And
lots of
is that
text
because it
messages.
was sort of COVID period when you were,
No,
no, not
No.
at all. No, it was
No,
just
this was maybe we
convenient.
learned working habits over COVID. And so, yeah,
Right.
Meredith lives a whole 15 minutes away from me, which
Ooh,
you can imagine there are
okay.
some days when you're like, how could I even?
Right. Well, it's
So,
hard enough as an individual writer to find the time to block and
mhm,
tackle everything in our lives, especially with kids and other jobs and whatnot. So, that much more difficult, right? Getting onto each other's schedules as well. I
mhm.
actually worked with my editor who lived in North Carolina, 6 months of Google phone calls and Facebook, FaceTiming with each other,
Yep.
to get there. But that's why I was curious, like, did you sort of say, okay, let's carve out Saturdays for 5 hours and do a deep dive? And I think
No, we
that's
did a lot. We did a
fascinating.
lot of passing back and forth. I think both of us, with Kendall's background in corporate communications, which is its own kind of collaborative teamwork writing, and then my background in TV, where it's very collaborative. Like you're in a room with a whole bunch of writers trying to map out seasons and episodes. I think we were both so used to the idea of like, here's the document. Now you look at it and tinker with it, and then I'll look at it again, and then you'll look at it again. So I think just depended different parts of the book. We would each draft different first drafts of chapters and then trade them and then put it together and look at it and see what we had. And does it sound like one voice writing? And
Right.
we got to about 130 pages and we decided we should let some beta readers read and see if it
If it
worked
was
and if
gelling,
it did
right.
sound like one writer. And we sent it to my brother, her best friend, Kendall's best friend, and then my assistant. And they all three read and were like, oh my God, keep going. This is so fun.
Amazing.
So that gave us kind of the external validation that it was tracking the way we were hoping that it was tracking.
Right.
But we found that our process is kind of that. We pass back and forth. We both write at very different times during the day. So I think that's the other thing, is allowing the creative space for each of our brains and how they function.
Right.
That's always been kind of, and look, we live in a timeline where you can do these things, right?
Yeah.
Between all the ways we can
Like you do
collaborate
the
now.
pickups and you can do
Yeah.
this and you can work late
Yeah,
at night. I mean, isn't that the
exactly.
best, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting because Kendall, you touched on something before about, the voice and no one laughed at you and said you're crazy. But there are moments we have of self-doubt. There are moments of the concern, the fear, if you will, the risk that I'm taking, putting all this energy into something that may or may not succeed. How did you kind of overcome those moments? You had each other, I get that, but what was your own self-talk and who else did you kind of go to, or who did you more importantly stay away from
Hmm.
that was going to help you stay on the path that you thought you should stay on?
I think we were really fortunate with the process for the first book that it went so fast. I mean, the book was done in 3 months. So we began writing in June, and then by Labor Day, we had an early draft. So the ways that we were getting energy, I mean, a lot of energy for me came from someone saying, "You're not crazy," right? Like, "Oh, I'll help you get this done." And the adrenaline of that really powered a lot of forward momentum to get us where we wanted to go. But we had some early conversations about mission statement. If we're going to do this, what does it need to feel like? And we were very upfront about, it has to be fun. This is something we're doing as a hobby, right? Like, this is a side hustle, and if you're gonna take on this extra work, it should be fun, and if it's not fun, then the work's gonna suffer, and it's just, what's the point?
Right.
So, we really wanted for it to be something that felt energy giving, because good creativity comes from great energy,
Yep.
and we also wanted, for it to be something. I mean, I remember saying this to Meredith, maybe I don't know if you relate to this, Meredith, but I said, "Let's fail fast. If we're wrong, let's just try it." So if we have an idea and we're not sure that it fits, I mean, what does it cost? 2 hours to just write it down? Let's see if it fits, and if it doesn't, great. And if
Yeah.
it does, or if it shakes something else loose, like, let's keep going. So really, this book was about forward momentum,
Mm.
for me, and how do we find good energy and perpetuate it?
And do you think that you could have continued on this path yourself independently, writing books? Do you think you would have, it's something that you might have pursued had you not met your partner in crime here? Um, do you feel like that may have happened anyway?
I think for me, the answer is probably yes, because
Yeah.
I feel like I've been called to do it for so
Yeah.
long. But would it
Yeah.
have been this book in this moment with this success? Probably not, right? Like,
Right.
I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And I've been working on this for a long time.
I love
But
that.
this moment is, and the reason that it happened so quickly and all of that is there's something bigger at work there.
Right. No, I love that. And Meredith, for you, sort of that moment of fear, concern, the voices in your head, those around you, those to keep away from you. What was that experience for you when those moments kind of came up?
Yeah, I don't think I had fear just because 'cause I've had to put so many things out into the marketplace that have failed. I mean,
Right.
it's look, Hollywood is a strange game of odds,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
for me, it wasn't fear. I think what was interesting is because I was forced to stand down with everybody else in my life and I couldn't do anything else, it kind of created this really interesting, open lane to go try the
Mm,
thing and then do it quickly and win
that's good.
big or fail fast,
Well,
I
and
think
great
so.
that you saw that. Not everybody
Yeah,
recognizes that open lane in their lives sometimes.
agreed. And
Yeah.
I think, I had a lot of writer friends that, and look, I had the advantage. I was in Atlanta, so there was not a lot I could do from Atlanta. And by way of strike stuff. And I think I had a lot of writer friends in that period that were, kind of stuck, and they were wringing their hands, rightfully so. And the fact that Kendall came forward with this idea, and it created, like, oh my God, I can actually do something with this time, because I'm not one to sit and wait, idly by. I just don't have that. I don't have that gene.
A
I didn't
gene,
get that one. I
right?
just didn't get it. I like to do things. I like logistics. I like actionable logistics. I like, and strategy. Like, I can talk a little bit of strategy for sure, but I love doing the thing, because I think can lead to wonderful things happening. So I think for me, it was recognizing the open space that was there to go try something
That's
totally
incredible.
new.
Yeah.
It's really funny. I found an email the other day that I'd written to a friend of mine that was like, I don't know, this was long before the strike, but it was like somewhere along the way. I was like, I don't know, maybe someday I'll write a book, but literally kind of tossed off nothing,
Right.
and wasn't something like Kendall, it wasn't something I carried around with me all the time. And I was like, oh, funny, I said that. Like, it was like 12 years ago. I was like, oh, how funny. Because I don't even remember saying it.
Right.
But that was kind of cool, so I think,
I love that. No, it's
yeah, timing in the
fascinating. I
universe.
mean, right? And when you think about, what propels you forward and the decisions you have to make when we juggle all the things that we do in our lives and these moments of opening, some people, as I said before, they don't see the opening, or they're not, as I asked people to do, to stop and listen. Ironically, my pub date for my book was March 7th, 2020. Okay.
Oh,
The week,
amazing.
the week before was my
Oh,
pub date.
oof.
And I had been saying, as I do in my book, in these conversations, is sometimes you just need to stop, pause, listen to yourself, be open to what the
Yeah.
possibilities are in life. And we're so busy on that hamster wheel that we don't typically afford ourselves the moment to do that. And what was magical about that moment in time was now my book tour across the country and my launch parties all over the place became virtual chat events 3 times a
Mhm.
week. I had a captive audience, one click away from buying a book, that was getting therapy. Okay. And we were literally hundreds of us getting on this virtual chat event where I was interviewing somebody, where I was literally, doing a book excerpt and then doing a Q&A. And Q&A became like therapy for everybody.
Mhm.
And it was extraordinary. So life handed me those lemons, and I definitely made lemonade out of them at the time. But it became the aha moment of pausing for so many people. And in that
Mhm.
pause came the quiet. And with the
Yeah.
quiet came the opening, the opportunity to kind of go, wow, what am I doing with my life? For all these people. Am I in the
Yeah.
Yeah.
relationship I want to be? Am I volunteering in the community? Am I growing the garden in the back that I've talked about for 12 years? Am I in a job that I really love? The great democratization of everybody on Zoom, and all of a sudden the C-suite and the junior staff were all like in the same size boxes on a screen. Like, all of these things that gave so many people pause was the great irony of the timing of my book, which literally
Mhm.
AP called the guidebook for now. And it
That's
was
amazing.
Cool.
extraordinary. So that moment of recognition that we have, or allowing ourselves, right, to kind of go, okay, I could, not I should, but I could. And what if?
Mhm.
And then blocking out the naysayers and forging ahead with something that we want to create is a really extraordinary thing. And if we don't know, we won't try. We've got to take that risk. And, it's riskier not to try something and sort of be stuck where we are forever. Right.
Mhm.
That's absolutely
So
right.
I love how you both come at that conversation. Now, I believe that I read there are more books in the series from Winter Park. And I got to tell you, I am reading the book. I am so excited about it. It's like, I just want to go home and cancel dinner plans and finish the book. So I haven't finished it yet, but it's so fun to be in the middle of it because it feels like a little addiction that you're just like dying to get to. Um, what's next? What's around the corner for both of you in your work together, but also with yourselves? Is this affecting the way you're looking at everything else you are doing now in your lives,
Mhm.
in your business, in some of these other places? And love to hear from both of you. Kendall, what's kind of that next step and what are you doing together?
Sure, sure. So what's next is at least one more book because we are in the midst of getting to the final round of edits with it. So we're really
Amazing.
excited that in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to say it's on its way, or it's on its way now in its own fashion, I suppose.
Okay,
um,
fantastic. Can't
we
wait.
would love the opportunity to tell more stories from Winter Park. So our agent, who's phenomenally talented, Alexander Machinist, refers to it as a constellation of characters in Winter Park. So if you think about each story being from a fresh perspective with a new mystery, and you're learning about different women in this community and the tropes or boxes they've either assumed or been forced into, and how are they looking at their lives and saying, okay, what do I like? What's influencing me? And what am I willing to bring forward with me? I love how you talk about allowing. I have a somebody I work with every week, and we talk about allowing and like, what if it's possible that actually the story can be different? And so we like putting women in the position of what is their big myth, the thing that they are telling themselves that defines them or limits them, and how do they experience friction in their lives that's going to help them to evolve.
Mm,
So that's what's immediately next.
I love that.
And then beyond that, I think we're gonna, keep going toward what's fun. So keep looking for ideas and stories that inspire me. I know Meredith has some television work that she's still tackling, and so I work on the side on what I now call my emotional support books. So whatever
Love that.
whatever I'm
Right.
tracking down, yeah, yeah, just trying to, again, stay intentional and focus a lot on, the work that I do every week is sort of like what feels good and what feels like it's frictionless because that is
Right.
if you are aligned with the energy of what's around you and you are going toward what is momentum, you are going toward something that's going to bring you reward and continued success. So just really trying to pay attention. How does this feel in my body? What do I want
Right.
next?
I love that.
And listening for those cues to follow them.
Good for you. And you, Meredith, what's next on the horizon? The book and then
Yeah. Book, and as Kendall said, any of the Winter Park, as many as they'll let us in
right.
Winter Park land. I do have a couple of TV pitches that are gonna go out sometime this fall.
Amazing.
Um, that are kind of very different in style and range.
Fun.
Yeah, they're kind of all over the map genre wise. And then look, I think my what this book taught me was, I spent 20 years writing 52 pages for 42 minutes and 20 seconds of content, right? And that's a real lane that you're in, and those are guardrails, and guidelines that you can't bend. So I think for me, I loved the challenge of prose and I loved the challenge of writing, to completion, which obviously is more feature like as opposed to the open ended nature of TV storytelling.
Right.
And I've been thinking a lot about just different ways to embrace prose and like, whatever it is, whether it's a short story or like other ideas for other books or just where do I get to go flex a muscle that's look, it's the thing I do, but it's not the thing I do. Because
Right.
I think
And
that
yeah.
writing the book was a really good kind of change of pace for me and
Well,
change
it
of
is, but
style.
what's fascinating, and maybe that's why the read of the book is so fun and so it moves. It's got a clip pace to it. And, it's probably this incredible infusion and combination of both of your energy in there because of what you both bring to the table. And I think it's so evident in the read. I'm a big reader and I'm a big TV watcher. And everybody that knows me is like, I don't understand. You're a workaholic 24/7. How are you the one that always says, you got to watch this and you got to read that? They're like, when do you
Totally.
sleep?
Yeah.
But it's the passion that drives
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
right? And that's the most extraordinary gift when we find the things that we love and we get to do them, let alone make a living out of them. That's pretty amazing. A fun question I want to ask before we have to sign off, but if you guys could have a dinner party, and I'm going to ask you
Mm.
separately, so you can have your own dinner party and you can invite both of us to those dinner parties. But are there people that have either influenced you that you are in awe of, that you really respect, that you would love to have, that you could break bread and have a glass of wine with and really get to know and have an interesting dinner conversation? 3 or 4 humans that would really be fun for you to surround yourself with.
Hmm. Kendall, if you have an answer, go for it. Or I can.
Sure. I I appreciate you all sending this to us ahead of time because it took me
Give you a
morning. I
moment.
I thought about it over my morning tea, yes. Um, so I think selfishly, I would love to have one more meal with my grandparents of my
Mm,
family. They're the family members that aren't here to see, me realize my dream, and we got the privilege of being in Winter Park where the book is set last week, and lots of my grandmother's friends came up to me and said, "I sold real estate with your grandmother," or whatever it is, and she just would have loved this. She would have thought it was so
mm,
much fun. All of them would have been so just thrilled for me, but I think folks that I also am very inspired by include I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Green brothers and the work that
no.
they're doing across YouTube, across literature. John Green wrote The Fault in Our Stars, a few other books,
Oh,
also from
yes.
Winter Park, just a little bit of a
Wow.
connection
Okay.
there.
Who knew, right?
But they are using their platform to do really solid humanitarian work and look
Mm,
after the world in a way that is you think of content creation as being sort of fun, but they're amplifying, both their viewers' audience through community polls, like what should we support? How can we fundraise?
interesting.
And then also looking after causes in the world in really phenomenal ways that I'm so proud of.
Yeah.
So I'd love to learn from them. How did they take that next level to take content to it's always fun, but it's also informative, serious, and significant.
Love that. Yeah. And how about you,
Um,
Meredith?
so funnily enough, one of my answers is the same. My grandmother, on my mom's side, I think I would love to have dinner with her because she just had the most unbelievable positive outlook on everything. There really were like no bad days, and there were plenty of bad days, but there were no bad days. And she was somebody who there was always room at her table. There was always room for one more person. And her house, that was her house. That was how she ran her life. And I think sometimes when things get tough, it's like, just having that like sunshiny person who just always could see like, okay, that's all bad, but this is good. I think, I think of
Nice.
her often. My uncle George, who was incredible guy. He was in the military and he served in Vietnam. He re-upped after 9/11. He was an emergency room doctor and he went and did 3 tours in his like 50s and 60s and was just this really, really wonderful guy. He is like my practical brain. He is the guy who I'm like, what would my Uncle George say right now? And it
I
was
love
always just
that.
the most practical thing, right? Because he had
Right.
to live his life always kind of looking at practical.
Right.
So I think just always, but you'd joke with him. You'd be like, "Hey, it hurts if I do this, my arm hurts." He goes, "Well, don't do that." Right? I mean, it's just okay.
Okay.
Okay. No, he was really
Life
great.
lessons.
And then I think my third one's kind of just small and simple is my best friend of my whole life. We met when we were 6 playing junior golf and tennis, and we haven't lived near each other since we were 18 years old. And I find myself at this moment in life just really missing her and missing like we talk all the time, but it's not the same thing. And
Yeah.
I was able to see her this summer in New York, and it was I don't know. It really made me think about like those friendships you have in your life that
Yeah.
or the old friends that really bolster you in a way that I don't know. There's just
They
something about
bolster
that
you and they
that
also ground you because they take
yeah.
you back to, the essence. When I asked that question
This
of who was little
yeah.
Kendall or little Meredith, it gives you pause to think about where you came from, what you dreamed of, who was that little girl or that little
Yeah.
boy, and how our journey has been, and how did we show up where we are. And sometimes it just feels really good to reconnect. I lived all over the world
Yeah.
as a kid, and I still connect with some of my absolute closest childhood friends, and it's a
Mhm.
little note here or there of his social media, and we're
Mhm.
checking on each other, and it just kind of like gives you that like joyful moment. And we need joy in our lives. I mean, let's face
Yeah.
it, right? So,
Yep.
how do you step away, both of you, and just have time for yourself? I mean, we're talking about having great joy in what we do, but the reality is it is work as well as joyful work. How do you give yourself that extra bit of grace and self-care? What is your secret to just taking care of you?
I play a lot of tennis.
So do
I
I.
go I go chase the ball around the court. That's usually
Same.
my that's where my brain gets to just run free
Yeah, I
and
call it my
not think,
happy
but think
place.
100%. I had to learn being on when I'm not on TV shows, but in development on things and you're kind of in the grind of doing something. I had to learn how to like say it's okay to put it down. It's not working today.
Mhm.
And it's okay to walk away and it's okay to go to the movies or take a nap or watch a show or read a book or, I had to learn to like, it's okay. I don't have to grind every single day at my desk. And I had to learn that because TV can be such a grind, especially when I was doing network and it was 22 episodes a season and it was a grind, right?
Yeah.
So I think my self-care looks like tennis and or, just it's okay if I sit on the couch. It's okay if I sit in my office chair and
Yes.
let it go.
Do nothing.
But
Yeah.
I had to learn that. I did have
Yeah.
to learn that.
Ditto. How about you, Kendall?
I am working on that because, as we've said, I turned my hobby into my job. And so I've been grappling with what does it look like to commodify the thing that you used to do
Right.
for peace and for escape. So a lot of long walks with my dog.
Right.
There are some folks in my life that keep me grounded and really look after me and help me feel supported, encouraged, and loved. And so I try to stay tight with them.
I love that.
And yeah, I think TBD, I'm still working on it.
Yeah. We're all works in progress always.
Yeah,
I mean, that is really the story of reinvention that, creating these moments in all different parts of our lives where we get to like look in, check in on ourselves and say, okay, am I where I want to be? And if not, how do I create those openings, those moments, those opportunities, just listening to ourselves and being gracious and graceful with ourselves to allow ourselves that, to feel entitled to create the life that we want and to bring those with us in a positive way on that journey is really pretty special. I love what you're both doing. I love meeting both of you. I feel like
Thank you.
if we were in the same town, we'd be having a lot of coffees and cocktails together. And I hope we get a chance when I'm in Atlanta. I just want to reemphasize to those listening, this book is fun. It's more than a beach read. I know it's been referred to that, but it's a year-round read. It is fun and I just love the energy, the story, and where it's going. I can't wait to actually get to the end of the book and find out where's Will. Because where is Will? Hey, if we're not on here, when we hang up, will you tell me? But I just love your input and this conversation and the inspiration to others to just realize what's possible, to be able to pivot, to reinvent, to sort of create that next chapter in your life that opens up all kinds of opportunities and possibilities. So I thank you both for sharing today, for being here, being my guests, and can't wait to see what's next and keep an eye out for the next book and the next chapters of both of your lives. And just really enjoyed this conversation today. So thank you again.
thank
Thank you.
And for those listening, please feel free to go to the reinventionexchange.com. You'll find lots of fun stories, blogs, posts, anecdotes, more podcasts, and just keep reinventing, everybody. Be open, let it happen. Feel that sense of entitlement to create what you want out of your life and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, Kendall. Thank you, Meredith. Such a pleasure.